Ah yes, man baby anime. You know, it's funny. I often find myself digging into other anime fans for judging shows based on visual aesthetic and surface level detail type stuff. It's particularly ironic with anime because, well, you can't walk into a collection of anime without tripping over dozens of stories about not judging a book by its cover, or the value of empathizing with people who might at first seem different or even worse than you. Every anime in existence contains this message at some point or another, and so I'm constantly poking fun at my cousin because beyond the scope of the story, aka not wanting to take on another long-running shonen series, I know the reason he never got into Attack on Titan when it was airing is because it's brown and green and has big bold black lines. And yet here I am around a year ago, looking at Ranking of Kings thinking, wow, this shit looks silly. Pass.
Why does it look like Eda and Eddie? Why does it look like Johnny Test? I don't care if the story or anything about it is good. Alright, I'm shallow.
But I couldn't help but notice that one of my anime YouTuber buddies really likes the show, and I like to think that he has pretty good taste, aka we like a lot of the same modern shows.
My man!
He's obviously not the only one who loves it. It's hugely popular in circles online and has made a shocking amount of money over time, arguably saving Wit Studio according to some. So eventually I started lurking around YouTube, checking out a few fight scenes and Sakuga compilations, and eventually stumbled upon the second OP and holy mackerel, why did no one tell me this is literally one of the best OPs and most well-animated shows of the decade?
Stand up and hit a little...
In fairness, they probably were trying. It's beautiful, it's unique, and it's extremely dynamic. Without a doubt, one of Wit Studio's best looking shows, featuring one of the most unique aesthetics I've seen. It's also highly inspirational. It might not actually be that inaccurate to refer to it as the man baby anime, but it's somehow the best conceivable version of that you could possibly think of. Our main character, Boji, who's much older than he first seems, is cursed to remain in the body of a baby-like boy with literally no strength, no muscle power, and no hearing or proper speaking ability either. By the way, I was shocked at how good a job they did at making sure much of what Boji was trying to communicate was clear, even though he literally can't speak words. There was also clearly a lot of effort put into the sign language scattered throughout, which was apparently supervised by the Tokyo Federation for the Deaf. So cool. There's just so much attention to detail on so many levels. But anyway, he's a perpetual baby boy with no muscles and no hearing or proper speaking abilities either. And yet he's determined to persevere and overcome his physical limitations, to be the king of his nation, strong enough to fight, lead, and bring unyielding peace to his people, while remaining true to his shonen heart. He tries, and he fails, and he falls, and he cries, but he always gets back up.
Gonna be okay.
And this undeniably shonen trope is made that much more archetypically powerful because, well, he's the man baby. If he can keep going, I sure as hell don't have any excuses. It's also shockingly dark, when it wants to be. I've heard the show referred to as the Dark Souls of anime, and that's definitely not without reason. Events might not always feature the same sort of consequences or quote-unquote stakes that a more quote-unquote mature show might feature, but it's undeniably dark at times. The show explores wicked moral grays and questionable motivations, themes of death, assassination, war, slavery, torture, revenge, betrayal, conquest, and I mean, they blend this dude's dad into a slushie and make him drink it to gain his power! It's fucked up, man! You can't do that! The show has no shortage of disturbing ideas to throw at you, once again, when it wants to. The counterpoint to that is that the author, Sosuke Toka, apparently isn't a fan of stories with bad endings, so he strives to give everyone a good ending if it's at all possible. Perhaps the circumstances that allow this to happen might come off as a bit cliche, cheesy, or even convenient at times. Perhaps the series even tests the limits of forgiveness and that whole empathy thing I mentioned earlier with some of its happy endings. But it never bothered me much. If you can stomach most shonen, be honest, you can stomach this. I found most of the logic, though cheesy and occasionally even convenient, never broke its own in-universe established rules. In many of these twist-happy endings were definitely foreshadowed, even if some of it might have arguably been retroactive. There were also plenty of moments when they didn't do the just a little bit too obvious cheesy thing. For example, and I'll keep this vague to avoid spoilers, during a scene on the edge of the afterlife, I kept expecting a certain deceased character to miraculously perk their ears up, look up, and see the still living Boji, who was clearly stated to be outside of the afterlife looking in. But it never happened. Thank god, that might have been a line too far for me. Some might also find the climax to the whole in-game battle build-up a tad disappointing depending on their expectations, but I really think they did about as good a job as they could have given just how many characters got their classic happy ending twists. And the final battles were certainly not without intensely well animated spectacle. Anyway, as for why the author's so attached to that idea of empathy, forgiveness, and handing out happy endings like hotcakes, well, maybe go check out my buddy Robert J's video on the author. He goes in depth into his past, his history as an author, struggles with work, regular life, and failure. He's basically the real-life man baby, having persevered through serious hardships for many years before becoming the author of this now beloved series. It's a roller coaster ride of emotions and an extremely inspiring story. And my boy put a ton of work into the video, flying to Japan to pick up the author's autobiography and translating it himself so that he could tell his story on YouTube. It does not have the views it deserves. Anyway, try not to judge an anime just because it looks kinda weird on the surface. It might just turn out to be one of the most well-crafted and most unique experiences you've had in a decade. And isn't that really what we're all looking for out of anime? The sort of truly unique experiences we can't find anywhere else? See you next time, baby boy.